Layla walked down the school hallway, feeling like everyone was looking at her. She kept her eyes on the ground, trying not to cry. It felt like the whole school was staring, whispering about her, but she didn't know why. She just wanted to get to class and hide. Then she looked up. On the wall, written in big letters, was a note that made her heart stop. Why vote for someone who has just a few years to live? Layla's eyes filled with tears. She couldn't believe someone would write that about her. The words hurt so much, like a sharp pain in her chest. She felt really sad, like all her strength had left her. Everyone around her kept staring, but Layla couldn't move. She just stood there, the words making her feel more alone than ever. Layla was a bright, beautiful 16-year-old girl, full of life and loved by everyone at her prestigious school, Hilton High. She was one of the smartest students in her class, always eager to learn and make new friends. But despite her cheerful smile, Layla carried a deep sadness in her heart, something that had changed her life forever. 10 years ago, Layla's world turned upside down. Her mother, who she loved more than anything, had passed away from cancer. It was the scariest and most painful time for Layla and her dad, Jimmy. The three of them had always been a happy family: Layla, her mom, and Jimmy. They lived in a beautiful home filled with laughter and love, but everything changed one fateful day. Layla was only 6 when it happened. Her dad had come home from work like any other day, but as he walked through the door, something felt wrong. The house was too quiet, and then he heard crying from the living room. His heart dropped when he saw little Layla kneeling beside her mother, who was lying on the floor, not moving. Layla was shaking her, tears pouring down her face. "Wake up, Mommy, please wake up," Layla cried, her small voice filled with fear. Jimmy rushed over, his heart racing. He lifted his wife into his arms and hurriedly drove to the hospital, hoping with everything he had that she would be okay. When they arrived, the doctors took her in right away, and for a moment, it seemed like things might get better. They managed to wake her up, but something still didn't feel right. Jimmy paced back and forth in the hospital hallway, waiting, praying for good news. Layla sat quietly in a chair, hugging her knees, her little face pale from crying. Then a doctor came into the room, his face serious. He asked Jimmy to follow him to his office. The air felt heavy as Jimmy walked behind the doctor, his heart pounding in his chest. When they reached the office, the doctor sat down and took a deep breath. "Mr. Jimmy," he said softly, "I'm afraid I have some very difficult news." Jimmy could barely breathe. "What is it, doctor? Is my wife going to be okay?" The doctor looked at him with sad eyes. "I'm sorry, but your wife has been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer." Jimmy felt like the ground had been ripped from beneath him. His heart shattered. Stage 4 cancer? How could this be happening? His wife, the woman he loved more than anything in the world, was gravely ill, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Tears filled Jimmy's eyes as he tried to hold himself together. He thought about Layla, who was waiting outside, too young to fully understand what was going on, but old enough to know that something was terribly wrong. How would he explain this to her? How would he face life without his wife by his side? The doctor continued talking, but Jimmy could hardly hear him over the sound of his own heart breaking. Time seemed to slow down, the world around him blurred, and all he could think of was the love of his life, slowly slipping away from him. When he finally left the doctor's office, Jimmy returned to Layla, who looked up at him with wide, scared eyes. He knelt down beside her, trying his best to smile, even though his heart was breaking inside. "Is Mommy okay?" Layla asked in a tiny voice, clinging to his arm. Jimmy wrapped his arms around her, holding her close. "Mommy is very sick, sweetheart," he whispered, his voice shaking. "But we're going to be strong, okay? We'll take care of her together." From that day on, their lives changed forever. Layla watched as her mom became weaker, spending more and more time in the hospital. She didn't understand everything, but she knew her mom was in pain. Jimmy did everything he could to take care of his wife and his little girl, but the weight of the situation was heavy. A few months later, Layla's mother passed away, and their home, once filled with love and laughter, felt empty. Layla was devastated. She cried for days, clinging to her dad as they tried to navigate life without her. Jimmy was heartbroken too, but he knew he had to stay strong for Layla. Years passed, but the pain never fully went away. Layla grew up into a smart, kind, and beautiful young girl, but deep down, the loss of her mother was always with her. Every day at school, she smiled and laughed with her friends, but when she was alone, she missed her mom terribly. And even though she didn't show it, the memory of that terrible day still haunted her. Now, at 16, Layla was ready to face the world with the strength her mother had always taught her. But little did she know, her past would soon come back in ways she could never imagine, testing her in ways she wasn't sure she could handle. At her school, Hilton High, she was known for being good at everything, but most of all, she was amazing at swimming. Whenever she was in the pool, she felt free, like she could do anything. People cheered for her, and she won almost every race. But even though Layla seemed perfect, her life wasn't easy. Her dad, Mr. Jimmy, loved her more than anything in the world. He tried his best to protect her, especially after her mom passed away from cancer when Layla was just 6 years old. Mr. Jimmy made sure Layla ate healthy food, went for regular checkups, and stayed as far away from any threat of cancer as possible. He didn't want to lose her too. Layla's life was full of love and excitement, but not everyone was happy for her. At school, she was dating the most handsome boy, Louis. He was kind, smart, and popular, everything a girl could want. People admired them as the perfect couple, but not everyone was cheering for Layla. There was a group of girls called the Fab Four: Lisa, Sarah, Chloe, and Mia. They were rich, pretty, and always wore the latest fashion. They believed they could have anything they wanted, and they didn't like anyone standing in their way. The Fab Four were always competing with Layla, even if Layla didn't see it that way. Lisa, the leader, especially didn't like how Layla seemed to get all the attention. Things got worse when Layla was nominated for the position of head girl at school. Being head girl was a big deal. It meant being a leader and representing the school, and both Layla and Lisa were nominated. Lisa was furious. She thought no one should dare compete with her. She believed the position was hers, and seeing Layla as her competition made her hatred grow even more. One sunny afternoon, Layla was practicing in the pool, preparing for the big swim meet coming up. The water sparkled as she swam, and her strokes were smooth and strong. As she reached the end of the pool, she heard clapping. Louis was standing by the edge, smiling proudly at her. "You're amazing, Layla," he said, offering her a towel. "Thanks, Louis," she replied, blushing a little. "I'm trying to be ready for the meet next week." Louis smiled, but before they could continue their conversation, Layla noticed the Fab Four sitting by the bleachers. Lisa was giving her a cold stare, while Sarah and Chloe whispered to each other. Mia, the quietest of the group, just looked away. "I'll go for another round," Layla said, trying to shake off the strange feeling in her chest. She wanted to focus on her practice. She dove back into the water. For the first few strokes, everything felt normal, but soon, something changed. Layla felt weak. Her arms were heavy, and it was getting harder to breathe. Her vision became blurry, and suddenly, she couldn't feel the water moving around her anymore. Louis, watching from the side, saw her start to struggle. "Layla?" he called out, but she didn't answer. His heart started racing. He could tell something was very wrong. Without thinking, Louis jumped into the pool. The water felt cold against his skin as he swam toward Layla as fast as he could. When he reached her, she had already collapsed, floating lifeless in the water. Panic surged through him. "Help! Somebody help!" Louis shouted, pulling Layla out of the pool. The lifeguard came running, and soon the school ambulance was there, rushing Layla to the hospital. Louis stayed behind, scared and worried, not knowing what was happening. He had never seen her like that before. When Layla's father, Mr. Jimmy, arrived at the hospital, his heart was racing. Memories of losing his wife to cancer years ago flashed through his mind. He couldn't bear the thought of something happening to his precious daughter, Layla. The doctor came out with a serious look on his face. "Mr. Jimmy," he said softly, "we've run some tests, and I'm afraid we have some difficult news." Mr. Jimmy's stomach dropped. He braced himself for the worst. "Layla has been diagnosed with cancer," the doctor said quietly. Jimmy's world crumbled. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. It felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. His legs felt weak, and his heart broke into 1,000 pieces. "No, not my Layla," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. He had already lost his wife to this terrible disease, and now his beautiful, strong Layla was facing the same nightmare. He cried and cried, the pain in his chest growing with every tear. Layla's life was about to change forever, and so was her father's. After Layla got better and returned to school, everything felt different. She wasn't the same lively, cheerful girl she used to be. Instead, she was quiet and always kept to herself. She didn't smile as much, and most of the time she looked lost in her own world. Louis noticed this. He was worried about her. But whenever he tried to talk, Layla just brushed him off. She didn't want to tell him how scared and sad she really felt. Soon, things started getting worse. Layla felt weaker than before. She was always tired and found it hard to do the things she loved, like swimming. She had to start chemotherapy treatments, which made her even more exhausted. Her body felt heavier and her heart felt sadder. One day after swimming, she grabbed a towel to dry her hair, just like she always did. But this time, something horrible happened. As she rubbed her head, the towel was filled with clumps of her hair. She stared at it, her heart sinking. Tears filled her eyes as she touched her head and realized she was losing her hair. The next day at school, things got even worse. The Fab Four were waiting. Lisa, Sarah, Chloe, and Mia stood by, watching her closely. As Layla walked past them, trying to ignore their whispers, they burst into laughter. "Look, it's the shading dog!" Lisa shouted cruelly, pointing at her thinning hair. Layla's face turned red with embarrassment. Her heart pounded in her chest as the cruel words echoed around her. She tried to hold back the tears, but it was too much. They were mocking her, laughing at her pain. She turned away and walked quickly to the bathroom, locking herself inside and sobbing quietly. But the worst was yet to come. One day, Layla was walking down the hallway, wearing a wig to cover her hair loss. She felt self-conscious, but hoped no one would notice. As she passed a group of classmates, one of them reached out and yanked off her wig, exposing her bald head for everyone to see. The hallway erupted in laughter. "Look at her!" someone shouted. "She's bald!" Layla froze. Her cheeks burned with shame, and she felt like the world was crumbling around her. She bent down, trying to grab her wig off the floor as fast as she could, but her hands were shaking. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she couldn't stop them this time. She felt so small, so embarrassed, and so alone. As she hurried away, holding her wig to her chest, she thought it couldn't get any worse. But then, Louis, the one person she thought would always be by her side, walked up to her and said, "I'm sorry, Layla," his voice cold and distant. "I can't do this anymore. I can't be with a bald girl. It's just too much." Her heart shattered. Louis was everything to her, and now he was leaving her for Lisa, the very person who made her life miserable. She couldn't believe it. How could someone she loved so much turn his back on her? Layla felt more alone than ever. She cried herself to sleep that night, feeling like there was no one left in the world who cared. Her body was weak, her hair was gone, and now even Louis had abandoned her. It was like her life was falling apart piece by piece, and she didn't know how to put it back together. It was finally the day of the head girl election. Layla had been waiting for this moment for weeks. She spent hours preparing her speech, practicing in front of the mirror, imagining how proud everyone would be when she gave it. Today, she was determined to be brave, even though deep down, she was nervous. She grabbed her speech, held her head high, and began walking down the school hallway toward the auditorium. As she walked, Layla noticed something strange. People were staring at her. Some whispered, others looked at her with pity, and a few even giggled. She felt confused. Her heart started beating faster as she wondered why everyone was acting this way. When she was almost at the end of the hallway, Layla saw it. A huge note was stuck to the wall. In big, bold letters, it read, "Why vote for someone who probably has a few months to live?" The words hit her like a punch in the stomach. Layla froze in place. Her hands started shaking, and she could feel tears filling her eyes. The hallway felt like it was spinning around her. She couldn't believe someone would write something so cruel. She had tried to stay strong, but now it felt like all her fears were laid out for everyone to see. Tears streamed down her face, and for a moment, she wanted to turn around and run away. But she knew she couldn't. She took a deep breath, wiped her tears, and gathered all the strength she had left. Slowly, she forced herself to walk toward the auditorium. Each step felt heavy, like her legs didn't want to move, but she kept going. She had to. Inside the auditorium, the air was filled with excitement. The students were chatting, waiting for the election speeches to begin. Layla found her seat, her heart still pounding, but she tried to stay calm. It was Lisa's turn to give her speech. Lisa strutted up to the stage, her chin held high, her confidence oozing with every step. The room grew quiet as she started speaking. "Good afternoon, teachers, students, and my fellow candidates," Lisa began, her voice smooth and full of confidence. "I am honored to stand here today to tell you why I should be your head girl. Leadership is about more than just being smart or popular. It's about being there for the students, creating a safe and strong environment where everyone can grow." Layla could feel Lisa's words creeping toward her like the venom of a snake about to strike. "You need a leader who will be here for you," Lisa continued. "Someone who can see things through, who can be here to guide the school for the rest of the year." Then Lisa's voice became colder, sharper. "Not someone who might not even live to see the end of the school year," she said with a smirk. The words echoed in the auditorium, hitting Layla like a blow to the chest. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. For a moment, Layla couldn't breathe, her chest tightened, and the whispers around her grew louder. The students were murmuring, some shocked, some amused. Layla's heart ached, and she could barely think. It felt like the whole room was collapsing in on her. She stood up slowly, trying to walk to the stage. Lisa, coming down from the stage, dragging her oxygen out and raised it up and shouted, "Look, she can't even function without this." Some started laughing while others stared in pity. How did the beautiful, vibrant Layla turn to a pitiful girl? As Layla took the next step, everything felt blurry. The lights, the people, even the floor beneath her feet. Her legs felt weak, like they would give out any second. She took one shaky step, then another, but before she could make it to the stage, everything went black. Layla fainted, collapsing to the floor as gasps filled the auditorium. The world seemed to stop for a moment. Layla was rushed to the hospital after fainting. The ambulance lights flashed and her father was running behind it, worry etched on his face. Meanwhile, at school, Lisa stood on stage smiling, holding the head girl badge. She felt on top of the world. She had everything she thought she wanted. Layla's life, her friends, even Layla's boyfriend, Louis. Days passed and Layla didn't return to school. The once buzzing school hallways seemed quieter as students began whispering, asking, "Where's Layla?" Even Louis started feeling something was wrong, but nobody had any answers. One gloomy morning, the teacher walked into the classroom holding a folded piece of paper. Her face was serious and her voice shook as she said, "Class, this is a letter from Layla." Everyone's heart sank. The room went silent, all eyes fixed on the note. Slowly, the teacher began to read. "They say life is unpredictable, but I never thought this would be my story. I never thought I'd be the one you choose to hurt or ignore, the one whispered about, the one left to feel like an outsider every single day. I wake up each morning with a heaviness in my heart, wondering if today might be different, if today someone will look at me without judgment, without ridicule. I didn't choose this body or this illness, yet somehow it feels like every part of me has become something to mock or avoid. The days I sit alone, feeling your eyes on me, your laughter when you think I can't hear, it sinks in deeper than I can explain. I've spent countless nights lying awake, questioning what I ever did to deserve this, if somehow my existence is meant to be a lesson in how much one person can endure. Yes, I look different. I know it's hard not to notice that I'm skinnier than everyone, or that I wear this nasal cannula. I didn't choose this body or this struggle, but I wake up each day grateful for the strength to keep going. Each morning I stand up and get dressed in the same uniform as you, because I want what we all do, a chance to learn, to grow, and maybe to be seen for who I am inside, beyond just what you see on the outside. What hurts most is that I thought school was a place where we all had a chance to support each other, a place where maybe I'd find friends who would look past my illness and see me. Layla, I may be weaker in some ways, but I'm strong enough to carry the weight of this battle every single day. And it's made me someone who understands the value of kindness, empathy, and compassion. These are lessons I wish I didn't have to learn this way, but they're lessons I hope you never have to learn through pain. I'm not writing this to make you feel sorry for me. My hope is that you'll look at me and maybe others with new eyes, because honestly, I do not know how long I have left. I hope that you see the courage it takes just to be here, to want to be part of something when you feel so alone. We're all fighting something, and if there's one thing I've learned, it's that kindness can mean the world when someone is struggling. But the truth is, your words and actions have left wounds that can't be seen. If you're reading this, I want you to know I forgive you, even though it's hard. I forgive you because I don't want this hurt to die with me. I forgive you because despite everything, I believe we're all capable of change, of choosing kindness over cruelty, of making each other feel seen and valued, of making better choices. Lisa rushed out of the classroom, tears streaming down her face. She couldn't believe what she had done. How could I be so mean? She whispered to herself. She remembered every mean thing she said, every hurtful laugh. Lisa couldn't bear it anymore. She ran to the principal's office, choking on her tears. Please, she begged the principal. Let me see Layla. I need to apologize. I need to tell her I'm sorry. The principal nodded and gave her permission. Lisa then called all their classmates, telling them to meet her the next day. We're going to visit Layla at the hospital, she told them, and we're doing something special. The next day, everyone arrived at the hospital. Every single one of Layla's classmates had shaved their heads. They wanted to show her they were with her, even in her hardest moments. Louis, Sarah, Chloe, Mia, all of them were there. They hoped to surprise Layla, to cheer her up and show her she wasn't alone. But did they see her?